This episode of SpectreSoundStudios is brought to you by Chicken Picks. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 82 of SMG Viewers Comments. If you guys have questions, we've got the smart-ass answers. Let's get to it.
How do I be different from other bands?
Dude, these days, that is the easiest thing in the world. You want to be different from another band? It's really quite simple. Turn off auto-tune, turn off the drum samples, turn off the amp sims, play real instruments, play real drums, and use talent. And just try to make your performance the best you possibly can before relying on a computer to fix it for you. I guarantee you'll sound different from every fucking band out there these days. That, and use proper grammar.
Hey Glenn, have you had any experience recording on tape? Greetings from New Brunswick.
Why, yes, actually, I do have experience recording on tape because when I came up in college, we were still based on tape. We had a lot of quarter-inch machines for, 4 tracks and 2 tracks for doing mix-downs and for basic recording and editing skills. And then we had, a 2-inch 16-track Studer, which was fucking amazing when the damn thing worked. And that was the one thing, people romanticize about tape, but the problem with tape was the damn machine was broken half the fucking time. And then you got wow and flutter and all kinds of fucking nonsense. And if you wanted to edit, you needed one of these. This is an edit all. This is where you put your tape on this block and cut with a razor blade, and you had this special tape that didn't leave residue, and you could put, splice the tape together. You had to use a grease pencil. It was very labor intensive to do any kind of cut whatsoever. So edits were very few and far between. And so basically musicians had to rely on talent instead. That's a big difference from today.
Question for you. Modern recording and contemporary metal bands tends to be as clinically perfect as possible. Bands are starting to sound more or less the same. What would you say if a band approached you with killer songs but wanted to sound old school like Celtic Frost or classic thrash albums out of the 80s or early 90s? Would you see it as a challenge to be able to sculpt the sound, or would you dismiss them by not wanting to sound shit?
That's a phenomenal question. I'm so glad you asked. Actually, I did a record like that, sort of. I did a Toronto band called Vias, and they definitely wanted to go old school. We did the drums up at Phase 1. We did the guitars here. I didn't get to do the vocals for it, unfortunately. So I'm not taking credit for the way how those sound. But the guitars, drums, bass, that's all my responsibility. And yeah, I'm very proud of how that sounded. That record should be coming out in a while. Anyway, but that's what the band wanted to do. No edits, no samples, do a real record. There was a big thrash revival a couple of years ago in San Francisco. I got asked if I wanted to do an album with one of the bands there, and that didn't actually wind up happening, but I would have really loved to do a record like that. Hell, I love thrash metal, and yeah, I would love to do thrash metal records because, like I said, the bands really had to be able to fucking play to do that. Would I be worried about people calling it shit? Well, the thing is, the modern over-processed, computer time-aligned, fixed, talent enhancement we have today, I think sounds like shit. So it really depends on your perspective more than anything.
Saving up for new pickups. Any suggestions?
Yeah, there's all kinds. I'd say go check out the new Fishman Fluence. I had a chance to talk with Ken Susi at NAMP for a few minutes about him, and I should be getting a set in here to demo fairly soon. I think they're going to be really great. I know Ryan Bruce over on Riffs and Beards just swears by him. He just swapped out all his pickups for the new Fishman Fluence. So that's definitely a choice. The other one would be the Chilean manufacturer, and I got it right this time, by the way, called Organic Pickups. I just did a demo for them if you want to take a look through my archive and check out how those sound. I was very impressed with those as well. So there's a couple suggestions. The Organics aren't even that expensive, really, so definitely worth taking a look at.
Much like Glenn standing by the tried and true PV Windsor, there's no shortage of fantastic cabinets out there which are way cheap because of brand name. For example, Crate Blue Voodoo cabs, Carvin Legacy cabs, Line 6 Spider Valve, seriously, like only this model cabs, Ampeg V cabs. All of these are void-free birch, made in the USA, and feature either really good, possibly rebranded Eminence drivers or Celestion V30s or GT75s. You can usually pick them up for under $250 US. I have a Crate BV412R and a BV215 for my rig, and I got them both for a total of $300. Sorry for the wordy post, all.
Dude, that's a fantastic suggestion. I really think I'm going to try checking out a couple of the Blue Voodoo cabs because, that's what this show is all about, is getting the most bang for your buck in a lot of cases. And, if they're loaded up with vintage 30s, that's definitely worth taking a look at. I've heard a lot of good things actually about that Line 6 Spider Valve cab. I've heard some great things about it. Definitely worth checking out as well. it's not a Spider amp, it's just the cab, and, let's face it, they didn't build the speakers, so chances are they couldn't fuck it up that bad, now could they? Yeah, the Blue Voodoo cabs, the Ampeg cab I've never heard of. I'll definitely take a look at that as well. But I definitely want to start taking a look at a few more different cabinets other than my standard Engel and Mesa, because I'm sure there's a lot of great options out there, and I definitely want to see just how good of a sound we can get for not very much money.
Hey Glenn, if Rob Halford called you and asked you to record, mix, and master a new Judas Priest album, would you do it? If no, what if he offered exposure?
Actually, doing a Priest record would kind of be my dream gig at this point. Always wanted to do a Priest record because I've got some very cool ideas I would present to the band on how I would want to see that record made. No, I'm not going to share that right here, but as a longtime Priest fan, I've got certain albums that are definitely my favorites, and I would definitely want to take an approach kind of like what they did on some of those records as opposed to some of the other records that I wasn't such a big fan of. So I just want to take a second here to talk about this week's sponsor, Chicken Picks. Now, I was first turned on to these back at NAMM 2015. Jacob Garcia gave me a handful, and I really didn't think much of them at the time, but I brought them home and tried them out, and I've been hooked on them ever since. In fact, I've been playing this 2.2 millimeter pick ever since NAMM 2015. It's bright white, so it's been pretty easy to find on the floor after I've dropped it. Chicken picks come in a variety of shapes, from the light and regular, which I prefer, to the Bermuda 3, the Badass 3, and if you're into smaller picks, the Shredder. They've got a size that'll fit your playing style, and they've all got this amazing beveled edge that lets you really dig into your strings for pinch harmonics. I've been very proud to wave the flag for Chicken Picks for the last 2 years. It is a great product made by wonderful people, and honestly, I gotta say, they make the best pick I have ever played in my 32 years as a guitar player. You can get yours at the Chicken Picks web store at chickenpicks.com. The link is in the description below. Back to the show.
I have a good question for you, Glenn. What is your opinion on music videos and the expression and musicianship in music videos? Too many videos of bands that have their heads glued to their fretboard on their guitars that are still and motionless and don't do anything theatrical to make a good video. That is why Steve Vai will always top the guys in Polyphia.
That's a fucking great point. As somebody who's aspired to be a music video director for a couple of years there, I ran into exactly that problem. And then I realized, there's guys out there that are way better at directing music videos than I could ever be. So I've kind of, concentrate more on YouTube because that seems to be where my strengths are. Anyway, about the staring at the fretboard thing, I actually did a music video for a band called Perpetuate a few years ago, and that is exactly the problem we had. We were people just standing there doing this the entire video and weren't really engaging with the viewer, and it made for a very boring video. That, and we had way too many medium shots and no wide shots, no close-ups, and it was just that's what happens when you just keep your camera on a glide cam all day. Anyway, so here's a clip of that. And then what we did actually was we took a look at that after putting it out, and a few people were saying, this looks like a college band. This wasn't, this could be a lot better, that sort of thing. And we sat down and we watched a few videos. I think we watched a couple of Arch Enemy videos actually, and got a really good look at what they were doing and kind of applied that to it instead. And we got some better lights and we found a better location. But the main thing was we got the band to stop staring at their fretboards and start engaging the audience. And we got this. Somewhere beyond the reach, weakness will not get the best of me. Red cats are your mighty feet, and rise above. And yeah, that we got just a way better response off that, of course. What we had there was somebody standing off camera with a Nerf gun, and they would shoot the guy every single time he'd stare at his fretboard instead of looking at the camera. You watch something like a Steel Panther video, those guys are engaged with the audience. Those guys are looking at the camera in every single shot. They're not down staring at their fretboard. You know why? Because that shit looks fucking boring.
I get a trophy for participation? Cool. Where do I get it? In all seriousness, considering the amount of vitriol that can be spewed in the general direction of bassists, righteously so it seems, have you ever had the misfortune of suffering depression? If so, how the ever-loving fuck did you manage to run a studio? I'm in a fairly bad spell of depression currently, and it's really hard for me to even make contact with my friends, even though I have a great time when I do.
Well, I think that's something we all suffer from one point to another. I mean, like, I went through a pretty rough period there near the end of 2004, where I had really put my heart into a couple of records, and, the bands just basically turned on me and just trashed all the work I had done and made me really want to quit. I remember just laying on the couch watching movies and not even wanting to get up and face it. And I, just like I said, just was really seriously considering quitting. I'm really glad I didn't. And I'm really glad I kept at it. But man, this job can be crushing in a lot of ways because you're under so much pressure to make something sound great. And when you're giving a less than stellar performance, that makes your job that much more difficult. But seriously, man, if you are suffering from depression, you shouldn't be asking me for advice. You should probably be seeking help from a professional because I'm in no way qualified to give you the right answer. Your bartender, on the other hand, can't help.
Hi Glenn, love your channel. I realize that metal is mostly guitar-centric, but do you ever work with keyboards? I've never even heard you mention the word keyboard. Are they usually unwanted bastard stepchildren in Glenn's musical world? Maybe bass players wouldn't feel so badly if they had a friend?
Well, you hear me play Protocol all the time, and they're just loaded with keyboards. The problem is they give me 85 different synth tracks, and I'm like, keep telling them, look, give me 2 tracks, left and right, keyboards. That way I can just put up the fader and not fucking worry about it. You deal with that bullshit. A lot of bands I find with keyboard players will actually do that shit at home because that stuff's, it's all direct recording. You don't have to worry about fucking anything up. And the best keyboard players, the guys who show up with a USB stick with everything, to the Metrum. Here you go. I love those things. For the most part, you don't hear me bitching about keyboard players because usually the keyboard player, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, is usually the best musician in the band. Those people usually have their shit together, and the best keyboard players are the ones I don't have to fucking worry about. I've definitely had the pleasure of a few sessions like that, and those are just absolutely magnificent.
Hey Glenn, when you use the Rosen cab impulses, what was your signal chain? I want to use my amp's line out combined with the cab impulse, but I'm worried about the tonal effects of no power tube in the chain.
That's a great question. Actually, what I used for the signal chain, because I had a lot of people asking me about that, that was my Rev Generator 120 into the 2 Notes Torpedo Live with their internal cabinets bypassed, and then into the Rosen impulses. A really great solution if you want to record your tube amp and actually use the power tubes is to grab one of these. This is a Countryman DI, and not only does it take an instrument level input, it takes a speaker level input. And what you can do is actually take the speaker out of your amp into the instrument input on this, just like I said, set your level for speaker level, and the amp out goes to your cabinet. Just make sure that cabinet's still hooked up. But on the back end XLR, you get a mic level signal to your mic preamp, and you can record that and run an impulse on that. And these things go for about $199, $149, something like that. Check them out on sweetwater.com. They're absolutely magnificent. Definitely worth the investment. So you're not going to quite get what you would get with a Torpedo, where it's a reactive load box and you can record silently. You're still going to have to plug into a cabinet, but you will get the power tubes involved, and you will get a great sound. Shane McPhee over at Recabinet, he turned me on to that technique a few years ago, and yeah, it works flawlessly.
Any thoughts on the Roland Cube 80 XL? It's a guitar amp. Also, why is it that every time I look for a drummer for my band, they always want to use electronic drum sets instead of real ones?
Haven't tried the Roland. Hopefully I'll get to review one at some point in the future. I might actually have access to one. I'll see what I can do. But as to your second question, here's the reason why a lot of drummers like electronic drum sets instead of real ones. Simply because you can crank the sensitivity way up and play really fast on them. And then you're brutal as fuck, dude. You can show up, see how brutal my drumming is. Look at these blast beats. That is until you put them on a real kit and you can't hear them play against the guitar amps. Because playing a real drum kit takes talent. That's it for this show. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much to Chicken Picks. I'm out of here. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this episode. If you like the content, please support the channel either at my SMG shop or through my Patreon. If you want to see more, hit one of the playlists. Thanks for watching. I'm out of here.